and it was a nice day. I did a couple parades over 4th of July weekend, and it was about 105 degrees for both of them. So I'm glad they could order up some pleasant weather for us here. My name is David Freed. I'm the Republican candidate for Attorney General in Pennsylvania. My day job is District Attorney in Cumberland County, just across the Susquehanna River to the west from Harrisburg. I'm in my 7th year as DA. I've been elected twice. I was the first assistant DA for about 5 years before that. Been a prosecutor for most of my career. Also have a couple stints in private practice of law. First time around doing mostly real estate, commercial loan closings, a little bit of municipal work, and the second time around doing insurance defense litigation, mostly auto accident cases for Allstate and Progressive insurance companies and some other property and casualty insurance companies. So if you were in a car accident and you got sued and you had insurance, we were the lawyers that took care of you. And that was actually a great set of experiences for me. I think it's made me a much better DA, having done civil trial work and learning how to value a case in that realm as well as valuing a case in the criminal realm. I want to build on something quickly that Scott said. We do have a registration disadvantage in Pennsylvania as Republicans, but we've always been able to win these offices. And it's by running good candidates with a good message, working hard, having grassroots. Scott mentioned John Marr, the CPA for PA. We're running an auditor for auditor. Me, I'm an experienced prosecutor, chief law enforcement officer, running to be the chief law enforcement officer. We're trying to send Tom Smith to Senate, a job creator, to go down to Washington, where that's just about the biggest issue. And our state treasurer candidate, Diane Irie-Vaughn, who's a county commissioner out in Washington County, one of the fastest growing counties in the state, someone who's managed a county with a very low tax burden and a retirement and pension fund. So we have a good, qualified slate of candidates that can stand up to any set on the other side. I'm thrilled and proud to have the support of your district attorney here in Bucks County, Dave Heckler. I was just on a radio show yesterday, and Dave's name came up. And so you gotta love, in my business, you have to love somebody that steps down from the bench to run for DA. Because we all think it's a great job, and we were excited that he did that. And Dave's been a wonderful leader within the Pennsylvania DA's Association. I'm the vice president of the association. Dave's on our institute board. But more importantly, Scott mentioned the Child Protection Task Force formed by the governor as one of the reactions to the Jerry Sandusky case. Dave's the head of that task force. I don't know if you know that. And he's been spending a lot of time on those issues. And they're pretty quickly going to come back with some recommendations about changes that we can make, necessary changes that we can make in Pennsylvania. And I can't think of a better person to be running that task force. I announced my run for Attorney General on December 6th of 2011. I stood up that day and started to talk about my experience and qualifications. I've been talking about my experience and qualifications, and I intend to finish this race talking about my experience and qualifications, because I believed at that time that's what set me apart from anybody else in the race, and I believe it still sets me apart from my opponent in this race. Bottom line experience as the chief law enforcement officer for the last 7 years, and 5 years before that as first assistant, running all the personnel and budget of the office. I can talk to you all day long about how tough on crime I am, and I've done everything from the smallest shoplifting cases all the way up to capital homicide, complex drug cases, arson, you name it, we've done it. And running an office, busy office in a growing county for the last 7 years. We've picked up a lot of support in this campaign, and a lot of support from business and business groups. Groups as diverse as the Pennsylvania Automotive Association, auto dealers, Pennsylvania Medical Society, Associated Builders and Contractors, the National Federation of Independent Business that represents so many small businesses, not just in the state, but across the country. The Pennsylvania Business Council through Pennsylvanians for Effective Government, and for the first time ever in an Attorney General's race, the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry. They've never endorsed in an Attorney General's race until this race. And I don't believe for a second that's because I'm cozying up to business and saying, hey, when I get in the Attorney General's office, you go ahead and do whatever you want. You'll have a good friend in there. That's not what I've been saying to business. That's not the pitch. My pitch is the philosophy of the Attorney General has a tremendous amount to say about the regulatory environment in the state. Attorney General's office reviews all the regulations that come out, reviews statutes for constitutionality, and the philosophy of the Attorney General, mine is very simple. I intend to be an active Attorney General, not an activist. Not pick winners and losers, go after certain people or businesses to get my name in the paper or on TV. I've done all that. I've done the big cases. I've gotten the accolades. I'm running to do the job. More importantly, the job of the Attorney General is to ensure a level playing field, to make sure that people follow the law. If you follow the law, you won't have a problem. You don't follow the law, then you'll have an issue with my office. I spent a lot of time on the campaign trail talking about my agenda to protect Pennsylvania. Protect our children, protect our elders. Those are our two most precious resources. Any prosecutor in this day and age would tell you that we do a pretty decent job protecting our elders from physical harm. Where things are going in that realm is financial harm and financial scams, frauds against the elderly. Not just phone scams, not just internet scams, but people taking powers of attorney or other legal documents, cozying up to their elders and using them to divest them of their entire life savings. I've done numerous of those cases as DA. They're not easy. They require extensive investigation. They require obtaining records. More importantly, they require forensic accounting, because it's not just enough to show that the money's gone, because the person who had the power of attorney says, oh, I had a power of attorney, I had permission to do that. And that's why they pick on elderly people who may be suffering from dementia or may be ill, because ultimately they're hoping they won't be there to testify against them. But with the forensic accounting, we use that to show not only is the money gone, here's where it went. For example, in a case that we prosecuted a number of years ago, it didn't go to pay the personal care home where Aunt Bertha was staying. It went to pay for the new motorhome, in the addition to the house, and the fancy dog breeding business, and his and her Mercedes. When we did that case, and we got through, we fought the civil fight on the power of attorney, and that case got to the jury, they came back pretty darn quick. Because when it comes down to it, that's just a theft. It's a theft by other means, but it's just taking something that doesn't belong to you. Those are not easy cases for district attorneys' offices to do. The Attorney General's office is in a particularly good place to help with the resources in those cases or step in and do them themselves. I spend a lot of time talking about protecting our communities. And when I say that, I'm talking about the scourge of illegal drugs. Not just the traditional drugs that we see, heroin, cocaine, marijuana, prescription drugs, which prescription drug abuse is rampant in this state, but the newer drugs that are out there. Synthetic drugs, man-made drugs. You've probably heard of methamphetamine. Anybody watch Breaking Bad? Anybody watch that show? That's about meth dealers. You see a little bit of that in Pennsylvania, but more often now we see other synthetic drugs, synthetic marijuana, and something called bath salts, which are not bath salts as you and I think about bath salts. They're called bath salts so they can try to sell them legitimately. But they're man-made drugs, and they're very dangerous in two ways. One, we don't know what the reaction of people will be to taking these drugs. We have a pretty good idea how to detox people from cocaine, marijuana, and heroin, and we do a pretty good job, and our police are trained to respond to that. But the bath salts and synthetics, it's all over the place. More importantly, kids can get their hands on those very easily. They don't need to know a drug dealer to get them. The Attorney General needs to lead there. Protect our taxpayers. I've done that as DA for the last 7 years. And protect our rights by pushing back against unreasonable federal regulation. I can't say it any better than Scott did. If you like the message, tell your friends. We get our vote out, we can prevail. I'm proud to be running with people like Scott, like the Congressman, and our entire statewide ticket. I appreciate the opportunity to be back with you today and be happy to answer any other questions later on when we get to that point. Thank you very much.